Ho there, Chef Cutter Diamond, with your Final Four highlights package for the 2017 NCAA Legends Tournament. Now, of course, I didn't really do review videos for the past few years. Now, in 2016, I was on my way to doing it, but unfortunately, my stupid PS3 crashed, and of course, I couldn't get it fixed, so that tournament's canceled. I kind of simulated through NCAA 11 and Louisville 1, but anyway. So anyway, where we left off was at the semifinals. We're underway, Georgia Tech against Wisconsin, and BYU versus Virginia Tech. So here's how the semis went. First semi was Georgia Tech and Wisconsin. Wisconsin was flying high after beating Michigan in overtime. Georgia Tech beating up on Iowa. And you'd be thinking, oh, Wisconsin's got this one. Wisconsin, try as they might, could not get enough offense. And in the end, it ended up being a 17-7 score for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. So Georgia Tech, surprisingly enough, gets to the final. In the other semifinal was Brigham Young versus Virginia Tech. And everyone thought, oh, BYU, with that triple overtime win, they may have wheezed themselves out. Virginia Tech, of course, with their win over Boise. And Brigham Young had nothing left. After beating Memphis and avoiding a massive upset and giving Memphis the real Cinderella slipper, not Georgia Tech, they won the game over Georgia Tech. They won the game over Memphis, and then of course they had nothing left against Virginia Tech. Nothing. Zero. Fucking nada. So anyway, next up was the final, and it had Georgia Tech versus Virginia Tech, and strange as it sounds, Virginia Tech had everything going for them. They had 118 points scored in their 5 games, with 37 given up. Georgia Tech had 12 fewer points scored in the 5 games and gave up 6 more points to Virginia Tech. Everyone thought Virginia Tech had this one in the bag, and give Michael Vick and his Hokies something to beat up on the Smokies. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Georgia Tech did beat Virginia Tech 13-7, as you saw in the video. Georgia Tech surprised everyone. I mean, can you believe it? Georgia Tech was supposed to lose to Oklahoma. They didn't. They were supposed to lose to Texas A&M in Las Vegas. They didn't. They were supposed to lose to Clemson in Orlando, the Capital One Bowl. They didn't. They were supposed to somehow lose to Iowa in Miami at the Orange Bowl. They didn't. They were expected to lose to Wisconsin, for God's sake. They didn't. And they were expected to lose to Virginia Tech, and they didn't. How the hell could Georgia Tech pull this off? It just doesn't make sense. But it made sense. The running plays worked out to perfection. They threw out a necessity. So anyway, so that was it. I'm going through a review and reveal my best game play from each group. Well, the round of 64, well, of course, 16 teams in each of the 4 groups. The game of the tournament, the game of the round in the Sugar Bowl bracket, that's supposed to be the Alabama bracket. The game of the first round was definitely Brigham Young Navy, because BYU was inches away from losing the game to Navy on a last-second touchdown, but thanks to a forced fumble at the 1-yard line on Navy's quarterback Edwin Pauley, BYU snuck to the second round to take on Alabama. In the second round, the game of the group was Florida State against Baylor. Florida State had a good shot in New Mexico. Baylor had the lead, but a couple of bad Baylor penalties ruined them, and Florida State scored the winning touchdown to beat them. And the game of the group in the final 3, like the group semis and the finals, it's got to be Memphis BYU. I mean, that's got to be the game of the group. I mean, BYU, yeah, they were an 8 seed, Memphis was 11 seed. But yeah, Memphis actually trailed by 10 points with less than a minute left, and still, for some reason, managed to tie the game, force it into overtime, and then all of a freaking sudden, you'll see, they went tete-a-tete. And Birmingham won in triple overtime. So anyway, so give you the fast count of the first round. It was Bama, BYU, Miami, Toledo, Baylor, Florida State, New Mexico, and Memphis went in the first round. Second round winners, round of 32, were BYU, Miami, Florida State, Memphis. And then Brigham Young, Memphis, Brigham Young. Alright, so over to Group 4, the Fiesta Bowl group, the game of the first round of the 16 teams. The game of the round, it was actually quite boring because no team, there was only one game in that group, in the first round of that group, in those 16 games. Houston, Arkansas, Tennessee, Virginia Tech, Ohio State, Kansas State, Washington, Boise. They all won by 20 or more points except for Kansas State, and that was against Ohio University. Amazing Ohio University. I mean, I was shocked San Diego State didn't score a point, and I was shocked Empire didn't score a point. Empire State didn't score a point. But anyway, in the round of 32, in the Fiesta Bowl group, the game of the round had to have been Houston, Arkansas. Arkansas had a chance to knock Houston off and go to face Virginia Tech in the round of 16, but they blew it. They threw a late Sterner or Ferguson? No, Millett threw a late game interception. Arkansas lost to Houston. Houston then, of course, lost to Virginia Tech. There weren't any memorable games in the Fiesta Bowl for the Fiesta Bowl semifinals and finals. But anyway, the winners were in order. Oh no, I said the first round. Second round winners were Houston, Virginia Tech, Ohio State, Boise, and then it was Virginia Tech, Boise, Virginia Tech. Next up on the list is the Rose Bowl group. And there were a few decent games, like USC against Auburn. USC only won 1-4. But the game of that group in the round 64 was Minnesota against Colorado, 6-11. Minnesota at home with a last-second heave by Dave Moore right into Arlen Bruce III's white hands. If you follow the CFL, you know who Arlen Bruce III is. But anyway, Minnesota shocked Colorado on the last play within a Hail Mary on home turf and got to the second round. The second round had a few memorable games. LSU nearly came back against Minnesota at the Papa John's Bowl, but unfortunately they didn't. Wisconsin beat Utah. Well, Wisconsin's win over Utah was huge because Utah committed a few cardinal sins and penalties, and then Wisconsin got a touchdown, massive touchdown, to win the game over Utah and get to the next round. And then, of course, we had Wisconsin needing double overtime to get rid of pesky Minnesota, and then Wisconsin then went to overtime to beat Michigan. So Wisconsin worked overtime twice in a row. That's amazing. So anyway, the winners in the Rose Bowl group were Michigan, West Virginia, Texas Christian, USC, Utah, Wisconsin, LSU, and Minnesota. And then the second round was Michigan, USC, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And then it's Michigan, Wisconsin. And finally, the Orange Bowl group, first round, served up a bit of fondness. There were 2 overtime games and 1 tight game. The tight game was Central Michigan facing South Florida, 15-2. And Central Michigan ended up winning the game 15-14 on a last-second field goal. Now, that was not the game of the round. That would go to Nebraska against Air Force. But anyway, Florida against Stanford. Stanford had a chance to... I don't know who had the chance to win the game late. But anyway, they went to overtime. Florida stopped Stanford cold. Florida got through. And then you got Nebraska Air Force. Air Force was actually up 10-7 with not a lot of time left. Sandro DeAngelis had a 48-yard field goal, and he pushed it right through the uprights to tie the game and force overtime. Now, of course, Sandro DeAngelis was aided by a heavy, strong wind in Nebraska. Well, they played at Nebraska Stadium. Air Force screwed up on their offensive possession in overtime. Nebraska scored a field goal. That was it. The other first-round winners were Clemson, Oklahoma State, Georgia Tech, Texas A&M, and Iowa. In the second round, there were a few tight games. Georgia Tech and Clemson nearly got upstaged by their opponents, Oklahoma State and Texas A&M. Iowa and Nebraska ended up winning that game, going around to 16. Georgia Tech beat Clemson to move on to the Orange Bowl final. Iowa had to stop a 2-point conference by Nebraska to get to the next round, and then of course Iowa got their butt handed in them by Georgia Tech 30-10. So anyway, that's it for 2017. Everything is just all hunky-dory and all that, I hope. Congrats to Georgia Tech, and let's hope that Texas, Oregon, and Notre Dame could actually qualify for the playoffs. They couldn't because they didn't hit the magic 7 number. Somehow I knew Georgia Tech would have been blown out of the water. So this is Jeff Diamond saying thank you for watching this 2017 series, and so long, farewell, and good night.